Hello, American federal government. I just wanted to update you because I know a lot of the videos are from last year, I think, that I made, and I haven't updated them. And so I'm just putting this video in announcements. It has to do mostly with polling. And so I wanted to start with that, and I want to start with this concept about polling. First of all, a lot of people have this misconception that polling is just way off, wildly off, and is of no use. But actually, polling is extremely useful, and it tends to be quite accurate. But they do make some mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes are minor. They're off by a little bit, but they're magnified because it's like, whoa, you missed that. So for example, in 2016, people will be like, well, the polls got it all wrong because Trump won and everyone expected him to lose. And the truth is that right before Election Day, the polls showed, on an average of polls, that Trump had about a 15-20% chance of winning, and then he won. So it's almost like meteorologists when they're forecasting 15-20% chance of rain. Sometimes it rains, when there's that chance of rain. And actually the polls nationally were pretty on target. They had anticipated that Hillary Clinton would win by about 3 million votes, and that's almost exactly how much she won the popular vote by. But the Electoral College is where they got it a little bit wrong, because in states like Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, the race, like in 2020, had come down to like less than 1%. And it had come down to like 10, 20,000 votes in each of those states because it was so close. And those polls tended to be a little bit less accurate, and it tended to undercount Trump's strength in that election. So why? Well, I have here a coin. And your book, I think, talked about this. I think it was your textbook that did a good job of explaining this. But if I flip this coin, heads, 10 times, tails, heads, then logically it's going to come out 5 heads, 5 tails. And if I kept doing it's 2-1, now it's 2-2, and oops, I dropped it. But my point is that there's actually a fairly good chance it might come out 7-3. It might come out 8, it might even come out 8-2. But very unlikely I'm going to flip 10 heads in a row. And there's a really good chance it's going to be 6-4. And in fact, I say it's unlikely it's going to be exactly 5-5 if you flip it just 10 times. If you flip this coin 1,000 times, then it is really going to be, if you're flipping it accurately, right, it's really going to probably be, out of 1,000 times, 520 to 480. It's going to be close. And imagine if you flip that coin 10,000 times, then it's probably going to be 5,100 to 4,900. And in other words, the more you flip that coin, the less statistical variation. And the same is true of polling. In some of those states, if they only poll 500 people, that's not a big enough sample. But the national polls tend to have large samples, and that's where we get into something called the margin of error. And the margin of error is depending on the polls, anywhere from 1 or 2% to 4 or 5%. The more accurate the poll is, the less the margin of error. So I mention all this because we're 1 month away from the election, and we're seeing the polls like the previous elections. It's a dead heat. Kamala Harris is up on average nationally by about 2 or 3 percentage points. But the Electoral College actually favors Trump and Republicans because rural states get a greater vote. And fundamentally, that's just undemocratic. If you live in Wyoming, your vote counts more than someone who lives in California. And if you care about democracy, that really needs to change, because it's not fair that people in Wyoming have a greater say in who gets to be president. But that is the way the system is set up. So that means that Trump can lose the popular vote and win the election, like he had done in 2016, and he almost did it in 2020. It was this close in some of those states like Georgia and Arizona and Pennsylvania and Michigan. And it's going to come down to those again. Really take a look at Pennsylvania. It's really close there. Right now, it appears that Kamala Harris has the lead in those Rust Belt states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, but just barely. And in the past, the polls have undercounted Trump's votes. And that's the other important thing with regards to polling. And that is, where are you getting your polling from? Because if you're, in your book mentioned the example, back in the 1930s, they were using the telephone to poll people. And the telephone was new and only wealthy people had telephones. And so it greatly overcounted Alf Landon and undercounted the Democrat Franklin Roosevelt, his polls. I mean, it was way off. And it's not because polling was wrong, it was because the method of the polling was wrong. So statisticians and pollers really try to tweak that. And what we found in 2016 is Trump had sown such distrust in the media and in anything related to that, that when pollsters would call up or, on the computer or whatever method they used, and they tried to access, a lot of the Trump people refused to answer. And so it tended to cause him to be undercounted. So they've tweaked it now. And in fact, in 2022, I think they overcompensated because it undercounted the Democratic vote. And the Democratic vote in 2022, the midterm elections, was a lot stronger. So how close are they now? Are they accurate? Well, the elections this close, who knows? There is a chance we could have a tie in the Electoral College. It's unlikely, but there's a chance of that. Right now, if I had to guess, I think it's almost certain that Kamala Harris is going to win the popular vote by at least a percentage point or 2 percentage points. But that definitely does not mean, we've seen 3 elections in the last 5 cycles where you had in 2000, no, 2, sorry, in 2000 and in 2016, George Bush and then Donald Trump both lost the popular vote but won the Electoral College. And we could see that happen again very much. It's definitely a possibility. So it's getting close, it's getting exciting. And finally in this video, it is Tuesday and tonight is the vice presidential debate. And so if you are someone who took the time to watch this video and make it to the end, then I'm offering you an opportunity to earn 25 extra credit points if you watch the debate tonight between J.D. Vance and Walz, the Democratic vice presidential candidate. And take some notes so I know that you watched it, just what topics they covered, and some brief things about some remarkable moments from the debate that you remember. And then a brief paragraph with a very objective analysis, like we did for the presidential debate, on strengths and weaknesses of each candidate. And if you do that, 25 extra credit points, that counts for an entire test or an entire homework assignment. And that is your reward for being a good student and watching this video and paying attention to the end. All right, enjoy the debate. I will be posting more videos as we get closer to certainly one of the most monumental elections in our lifetimes. We've said that about every election, but they do seem very consequential. So, all right, best of luck.